All right, shalom, shalom. It's Brother Hataz the Q Israel. I'd like to start off by giving honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. This is Revelation chapter 13 breakdown. And Lord willing, you're edified through the Spirit. Empower Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kodash. Right? So let's get right into it. This is Revelation chapter 13. Right? In verse 1. Right. Revelation 13 and 1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. Right? Which is you have what? The 7 heads, the 7 rulerships throughout Esau's time. Right? Which is we got what? Rome, France, Greece, Britain, Germania Major, Germania Minor, Spain, 7 heads, 10 horns, France, Italy, Luxembourg, Belgium, Netherlands, Denmark, right? Ireland and England, right, which is the UK, right? Greece, Spain and Portugal, one and the same, right? And West Germany, right? That's it right there, right? So Revelation, right? 13 and 1, right? So that beast is what? The European Union and NATO, right? So like having some technical difficulties. Right? And it says, right, and it reads Revelation 13 and 2. It's like let me restart that. Revelation 13 and 2, right? So like right, so Revelation 13 and 2. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, right? And his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority, right? So the beast that John Revelator saw, right, was like unto a leopard. Why? Because that's talking about the Grecians, right? Which originally were what? The Polynesians, right? And so that was the beginning of, right, the Greek Empire, which is how Esau got his start, which is Greeks, the Romans, right? And then now the revitalized Roman Empire, right? So the what you call the right Japites, so-called Hawaiians and whatnot, right? This was actually their customs, right? The Greek, right? Esau did not come up with that. That was Japhetic, right? And right, to give you right a little background on that, you can look up, you can do your own research, but you have what's called, right, the Mycenaean Greek, right? Which is linear, right? It's a linear B script, right? This is how it looks, right? It's the earliest form of Greek, right? Minoan, right? The Minoans, right? The Japhites, right? Esau did not come up with this, right? This is linear B, right? That's linear B script, right? Which is the earliest form of Greek, right? You see, that's a yad right there, right? So the Hebrew, right? Right, it all goes back, right, to the Hebrew, right? Um, and that was a yad, right? But that's the Mycenaean Greek, right? Linear A, right? This is where, right, Esau did not come up with no damn Greek, right? He took that from the Polynesians, Minoans, right, Japhites, right? Because you have to know your history, right? Because right, Prince Philip, right, actually Philip the First, right, which is the father of Alexander the Great, right? They were Macedonians, right? So these men, right, traveled east, right? Alexander the Great, right, and he started taking on the customs of the people, right? So it wasn't right Esau, right, coming up with Greek or uh right or all these customs you see Esau practicing today, right? He either got it from the ancient civilization, right, or he what you would call right, um, he culturally appropriated it. Any custom you see has been culturally appropriated by Esau, right? So that's the leopard, right? Because when Alexander the Great, right, he had a thing for the Greek customs, right? Let's see if we can find something on that, right? Um, Slovakia, Alexander the Great adopt Greek customs, right? Right. So this is part of Esau's lie, right? That he comes up that he's a great mastermind, right? He's a right. He culturally appropriates, right, and right, because he learned from the Tower of Babel, right? Uh, that right. In order to have a melting pot of people, right, you got to simulate the customs, right? Same thing that Cain did, right? Which is why the scriptures say that you will have right, sin will have rule over you, right? Um, which is why, right? If you read in the book of Genesis, right, that's what Esau does, right? Which is mashal, right? And really that means in assimilation, right? So Esau will be assimilated by into sin, right? Dragged into sin. Why? Because of his own desire. So he entices the people, right, by mixing cultures and customs, adopting them, and adding all people to himself, not just the people themselves or customs, right, in order to promote confusion, right? So it says, let me just click on some of these. How was Alexander introduced to Greek culture? Right, Alexander's tutor was the Greek philosopher Aristotle, who impressed upon him the value of Greek culture and philosophy. Right, so he was not a Greek. Right, it says Alexander spread Greek culture throughout the Persian Empire, including parts of Asia and Africa. Alexander respected local cultures he conquered, right, and allowed their customs to continue. Right, where he wore Persian clothes, marrying Persian women. Right, so that's the leopard, right, which is right the Greeks, right, with Alexander the Great starting, right, with him Hellenizing the known world, right, which is why that beast, the leopard, right, had four wings, right, because Alexander the Great colonized the four corners of the known world during that time, right? Revelation 13 and 2, the leopard is the Greeks, right? You have, um, right, which started with, which is synonymous with Alexander the Great, right? And his feet were at his feet of the bear, right? Represents Gog and Magog, the last leg of Esau's empire, right? And his mouth was as the mouth of a lion, right? The mouth of the lion is Great Britain, right? Because there was a certain point in time when, right, Great Britain, right, was a was a superpower, right, and their monarch, right, it lasted a very long time, right, and this is ultimately where the little horn came out of, right, America Babylon the Great, right, which is Rome all over again, right, and right, so the right, the leopard is Alexander the Great, right? So let's get some precepts. Daniel chapter 7 and verse 6. Daniel 7:6, and after this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it four wings of a fowl. The beast had also four heads, and the dominion was given unto it, right? And after this I saw in the night visions, behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, strong exceedingly, and had great iron teeth, and it devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns, right? Um, so it says, and I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were three of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. Right? That's part of the name of blasphemy, right? Because right, they call themselves so-called white people, right? They call themselves, right, the illuminated ones, right? They claim, right, that that they are, right, the people of God, right? Because they speak great blasphemies, right? It's all part of his system, right? The laws that he makes, right, which is right contrary to the law, right? You got right Moism, right? He spreads that, right? He spreads, right, certain parts in Europe, right? You can get with a cow, right? And you can, right, do that with, I mean, he's off, right? So that's part of, right, the name of blasphemy, right? The things that he speaks, the laws that he makes, how he exalts himself, how he blasphemes the tabernacle of God, which is the saints, right? By calling us bywords, and but that was all prophesied, right? So you gotta keep that in mind, right? All these things were already, right, written to happen, right? So this is right. So you have what the um the little horn, right, which is America Babylon the Great. Three of the first horns, right, is Britain, Spain, and France, right? They were plucked up, right, because right, ultimately, right, during these various wars, right, the French, uh, right, the French were fought out of America Babylon the Great by the original colonies that Esau made there, right? The Spanish, there was a Spanish war with the, right? These are Edomites fighting Edomites, right? At the end of the day, right? And they ultimately gained their independence from Great Britain, right? So it says, right, And this horn were like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things, right? Which is part of his blasphemy, the name of blasphemy, right? He exalts himself above the throne, above the earth, right? Um, and so on and so forth, right? So it says, right? That's it for that. Let's get Daniel 2 and 32, right? Daniel chapter 2 and verse 32. Right, you have the image was of fire and gold, right, which is the Babylonians, right, and his breasts were like the arms of silver, right, his breasts and his arms were of silver, right, which is what Persians and the Medes. His belly and thighs are brass. That's the Greeks. His legs are iron. His feet part of iron and part of clay, right, which is the Roman Empire, right. Daniel 2 and 34, right? Well, actually, that's it for that. But getting right to the point, right? That's what the feet of the bear, right? The mouth of a lion, right? The dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority, right? So let's go back to Revelation chapter 13 and verse 2. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, his mouth as the mouth of a lion, and the dragon gave him his power and his seat and authority, right? The dragon, right, is the Roman Empire, right, and which is right here again in these latter days, right. Revelation 13 and 3, and I saw one of his heads as they were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast, right. So what is a deadly wound, right? That's the fall, right, of Esau's ancient Roman Empire, right? Which is right, same thing spoken of, right? Revelation chapter 20, right? And verse 1 and on down, right? Revelation 21, and I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. He laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, bound him 1,000 years, right? So you had what? During the time of the Dark Ages, right? Starting with the Byzantine Empire, right? Like I brought up before, right? Was the beginning of Jake being in power, right? Under it's also known as the Holy Roman Empire, right? So you have, right? You can look this up, right? Right, during times like right, you had Jakes in power, but they were still under the Esau's Roman system, right? Like Nerva, right? Um, Septimus Severus, right? Nerva around 100 AD, Septimus Severus 200 AD, but they were still, it was Jake ruling, but they were under Esau's Roman system, right? But eventually, right, with Constantine the Great, right, the Byzantine Empire, right. So 100, 200 AD, right, that was when Esau was losing his grip, right, when these people were ruling, which were Jakes, right. Read about crisis of the 3rd century, right. Look it up, right. I'm not going to go on to it, right. I might for the Revelation chapter 20, right. But just you can look it up, right. Um, right. So that was around 400 AD, right. Esau, right. He was no longer in control, right. Because the scriptures speak about, right, the big when Wisdom of Solomon 7 and 17, right. He spoke about to him was given the understanding of the beginning and the midst of the times, right. The midst of the times is the Dark Ages, right. And then Esau re-emerged in the 15th century, right. But that's the point, right. That deadly wound was healed when he had, returned back during the Renaissance, right? 15th century, which is around the 1400s, right? That's when this deadly wound was healed, right? All the world wondered after the beast, right? When there was a right, all leading up even until today, right? Because all the world is wondering after America Babylon the Great, right? Because they're like they don't say, well, Rome is back, but they see Esau, right? He's using the same customs, even the same terminologies, right? Rome wasn't built in a day, and so on and so forth, right? His months, his days, they're all based off, right? All roads lead to Rome, right? Even when we go into the Charagma, right? Um, so this is the book of Daniel, chapter 2, and verse 40, right? Daniel 2 and 40. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces, and subdueth all things. And as iron that breaketh all these shall break in pieces and bruise, right? Which is the fourth kingdom is the fourth beast, right? Which is, right, the harlot sitting upon the beast. The harlot is America Babylon the Great, right? The beast is the NATO and EU, right? The seven heads represents Esau's various rulerships, right, throughout time, right? And the NATO and EU is the um ten horns, right? Or the 10 crowns, right? 10 horns, 10 crowns, speaking about the same thing, right? Because a crown represents, right, a rulership, right? Authority, right? Which is what NATO and EU, right, um, right, does to this harlot today, right? Gives the harlot her power, her seat, and authority, but ultimately the beast is going to turn on the harlot, right, and devour the great whore, right? He's going to burn her up, right, which is in the form of, right, nuclear fire, right. Um, so yeah, right, and then this is, right, what's leading up to the end, right, of Esau's world, right. Um, so this is the book of Daniel, chapter 7 and verse 7, right, right. So we went over that, right, speaking great things, right, because as you read further down in this chapter, right, this is what this um verse 6, right, is what this beast does, right. It speaks blasphemy against the temple of the Lord, which are his people, right. The images is what Esau did during the Renaissance, right. You have something that's called iconoclasm, right. Let's look that up, and let's look how, right, how iron played a part in the Roman, right, the rising up of the ancient Rome, right. The right, Slovakia. The importance of iron weapons of the Romans. Right. So it says Iron is used for metal. You can do a lot with it. You can make cookware, nails, agricultural tools, and other handy things. Uh, Despite this, we tend to associate iron with one application in particular, warfare, right? Um, there's a reason for this. The Iron Age of Europe saw the expansion of several military powers, from the Athenian Empire to the Empire of Alexander the Great. None, however, would reach the size or scale of the Roman Empire. The Roman Iron Age began long before Rome became an international empire, but it was partly thanks to iron weapons that the Roman military was so effective, right? So this is how Rome came into power, because their iron weapons were so effective. But of course, it was iron in the hands of Rome's enemies that led to its downfall. So what can you compare that onto? The ICBM missiles, right? The trading that Esau does, selling his weapons, selling his ships, his battleships, his right, um, right, his aerial vehicles, right. So that's gonna lead to the downfall of Esau's America, Babylon the Great, right? Because these other nations now they're weak, saying they're strong, right? And it's right. This is why, right? And Daniel, right? Let's get that 2 and 32. Daniel chapter 2 and 35, right? The feet were of iron and clay, right? Salakia, right? His legs were part of iron, and his feet part of iron and part of clay, right? Representing the division of the last leg of Esau's reign, right? NATO, EU, these European nations, right? Eventually turning on each other, and ultimately turning against the whore, right? Because they see America, Babylon the Great has their own agenda, right? And right, there has to be, right, a right. This is going to be the scapegoat, right, for the elite, right, in order, right, to kick off, right, the third woe, right. All this is engineered, right, because the Lord put it in Esau's spirit, right, in order for him, right, to attempt to establish his new world agenda, right, which will not happen, right. So he's gonna fall, right. His weapons are gonna be the cause of his fall, right. Thus saith the Holy Bible, right. So it says, um, let's go back to Revelation chapter 13. Right, Revelation 13 and 2. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast, right? So the deadly wound was healed, right, when Rome reemerged, right, which was the started during the Renaissance, right? Now let's look up Renaissance iconoclasm, right? Iconoclasm, right? Iconoclasm, the action of attacking or assertively rejecting cherished beliefs and institutions of established values and practices, the rejection or destruction of religious images as heretical, the doctrine of iconoclasts, right? Um, right, iconoclasm, right? Now these are right the dark images of the people of the Lord. This is how he saw blasphemies, the temple, right? And you Arabs as well. You got a price to pay, right? Right. You look at so-called Ishmaelite, right? Any images that he has, they look like Chinese people, right? That he does, right? That he paints according to what his Islamic faith, right? That's blasphemy, right? And that's all part of Esau's deception, right? um, Catholicism, Christianity, Islam, all these things, they come out of there. It's basically Catholicism, right? It either comes from Christianity or Catholicism, right? Which is why, right, right, and Esau's his spearheads this whole thing, right? Because he's the one in charge, right, of the resources, the lands, right? Which is why, right, this goddamn devil has to be destroyed, right? And the Lord will, right, make the day, right, that day swift, right, like Scripture say, 1 hour, right. So this iconoclasm, right? You read that in the Book of Maccabees, right? They sought to paint, the heathen sought to paint their images, right? Because they knew, right, the people were cast off, the Israelites, right? Um, the Lord had rejected them. He had turned his face from us, right? So they sought to paint their images on our, right, pertaining to our holy things, right? Um, so let's get that real quick. First Maccabees. Salakia. This is First Maccabees chapter 3 and 48. And laid open the book of the law, wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images, right? So Esau spearheaded that, right? And right, all these heathens just, right, they followed suit, right? Because when Esau came into power, right, he thought, this is why he calls it the Dark Ages, the medieval times, right? Because it was evil for him, right? Because he was subjugated, right? That's all medieval means, right? Midst of the times, evil, right? So let's look up Renaissance on the online etymology dictionary, right? Renaissance. What does it mean? It's a right, a period of revival for Esau, right? Renaissance, noun, great period of revival of classical based art and learning in Europe that began in the 14th century, right? 14th century, that's circa, right, 1400s, 1300s, right, around that time. 1840, from French Renaissance, des lettres, from Old French Renaissance, literally rebirth, usually in the spiritual sense. From renastre, grow anew, a plants, be reborn, right? Renascere, from Latin, renasci, be born again, rise again, reappear, be renewed, right? Revival of learning, right? A revival of anything that's long been in decay or disuse of learning, right? And Esau did not relearn a goddamn thing, right? Anything he knows, he took it from Jake, right? Because scripture say in the book of Job, right, that they eat up the bushes and the mallows, the base men, right? They eat up the rat, the grass like dogs, right? That's all, right? When they were in the Caucasus, right? When they were ran up, right, by, right, Jake during the Dark Ages, right? Um, so Revelation 13 and 5, right? So this is what they're saying in these latter days, right? Revelation 13 and 4. They worship the dragon which gave power unto the beast, and they worship the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast, who is able to make war with him, right? So the dragon that gave power unto the beast, right? NATO, right? Through their military, right? And they're all Edomites, right? They gave power unto the beast, right? Here, the beast, right, is the same as that harlot, the same harlot that you read of, right? Because the harlot sat on the dragon, right? The beast, right, This is the revitalized Roman Empire, America, Babylon the Great, right? So just because it says beast, it doesn't mean it's the fourth beast or this and that, right? Revelation 13:4, and they worship the beast, saying, "Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him?" Right? This is what, right, these countries used to say, right? Which is why, right, you have so-called Chinese, Japanese men, right? They still wear their suits, their monkey suits, right? You still have, right, these other nations abandoning their former customs just so they can fornicate with the whore, right? America, Babylon the Great, which is take part of her world currency, right? But this is what they used to do, right? They still do it, but not as prominently as before. But really, right, that's part of the beast's fornication, right? Taking on the customs, right? The idolatry, right, that Esau promotes, right? Which is really the other nations there. They're idolaters naturally. They're not righteous, right? But that's part of fornication, right? A mingling of the nations, right? Just like on the Tower of Babel, right? Uh, which is right, Babel, right? The root word for that is balal, right? Which is a mingling. It means to mingle, right? Um, right. So this is what the nations used to say, right? But now you got these superpowers, right, rising up, right? They're gonna right fight against this great whore, right, in the midst of World War III, right? Revelation 13:5. There was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months, right? 42 months, right? Read that Revelation chapter 11, verse 1, right? Revelation 12, and what is it? Revelation 12 and 6, right? Revelation 12 and 14, that's times, and half a times, right? 42 months, 3.5 years, 350 years, 1,260 days. That's from 1619, 1970, right? When truth came out of One West. 1619, when the Southern Kingdom was in hardcore slavery under Esau, right? And he spake great things, blasphemies. That's part of his name, right? Blasphemy is the things that he does, right? He tries to take on creation, right? But it's part of the name of blasphemy, right? He tries to edit creation, right? To play the part of God, right? But the Most High is going to destroy him, right? Revelation 13:6, right? And he opened his mouth and blasphemed against God, to blaspheme his name, right? Changing the name of the Lord, right? Um, right? You got certain of these Amalekites, right? Adding to the law, right? They're going to be added unto the plagues, right? You got Ishmaelites, right? Adding, right, to the scriptures, right? With their own book, right? Which is doo-doo, right? It's false, right? They're going to be judged for that as well, right? So the Lord is not dealing with them, right? Um, right? And his tabernacle is what? His people, right? Because scriptures say, right, that they were that our people are downtrodden and in the helpful with the affliction, right? And them that dwell in heaven, right? Iconoclasm, right? Painting the image over the images of the saints, right? Um, this is the book of Salakia. Let me see if I can get another precept. Daniel chapter 7 and verse 8. Right, so that's what I read earlier, right? 7 and 8. About speaking great things, right? Which is why the scriptures say, right, uh, that he had two horns like a lamb, he spake as a dragon. That's verse 11, right? Revelation 13 and 11, right? So all these things go hand in hand, right? Revelation, right, 13 and 13 and 5, right? Revelation 13:5, and there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. Power was given unto him to continue 42 months. Right? Revelation chapter 13 verse 6, he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, right? Changing the name, right? God, right? Lord, Jehovah, right? That's not the name, right? Adonai, right? Elohim, that's not how you say it, right? Blasphemy his name, his tabernacle, them that dwell in heaven, right? Revelation 13:7, it was given unto him to make war with the saints, to overcome them, and power was given, right, him over all kindreds, tongues, and nations. How did he receive that power? With this great sword that was given to him of the Lord, right? That goes back to the blessing that Isaac, his forefather, gave him, right? Which is in the reincarnation, right? That's the Mashiach Yahushai, right? He also came to Solomon, right? And so on and so forth, right? So Revelation 16:6-2, and there went out another horse that was red. Power was given unto him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, that they should kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword. Right? And the scriptures say that right, there's a brethren that causes dissension. Right? This is what Esau causes: dissension, division amongst the people. Right? Through his politics, right? Through his propaganda. And his politics is propaganda. His media is a propaganda machine, right? His own people, right? He promotes division within his own people, right? Because, right, that's part of the name of blasphemy, right? Because he lets his own people be Moses, right? And he promotes that, right? And Simple Jake, you have Simple Jake following right along, right? And Esau doesn't give a damn, right? It's just like with this thing that's going on, the juicy juice, right? Esau, the way he sees it, right, is right. We're gonna count our losses, right? So Esau doesn't give a damn about his own people, right? And that's part of his names of blasphemy, right? His unrighteous decrees, right? The things that he does, right? And power was given unto him to do that, right? That's of the Lord, right? So power was given unto him, Revelation 13:7, over all kindreds, tongues, and nations, right? And he made war with the saints, right? When did he do that? Right? When he reemerged, right? He subjugated Jake, right? Put him in slavery, right? Brought him on in ships, right? Right? Chained up, right? You had millions and millions, right? You had countless Jakes dying that died on the journey here, right? Esau ate some of the Jakes, right? You read about it, right? You can look that all up yourself, right? He really, right? So this man is sick, right? This dude's got to go, right? So we overcame the saints, right? And he overcame the saints as well during his ancient Roman Empire, right? Which is why you lead, right? He who leads into captivity will go into captivity, right? Bashem Mashiach Yahushai, right? So it says, actually, let's get Revelation chapter 11, verse 7, right? When they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascended out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them and shall overcome them, right? Because we went through captivity, right? We went through the curses, right? That's part of our testimony, right? We went through the curses, right? And the peak of that was here in America, Babylon the Great, the southern kingdom, right? Put in chains, right? You had countless Gadites slaughtered, right? The Spaniards, right? The conquistadors, countless northern kingdom slaughtered, right? So we finished our testimony, right? Which was going through the curses, right? Right, and that same beast came back, right? after the Renaissance, right? He made war with the saints, overcame them, right? Which is why we read in Revelation 11 and 8, their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt, right? Which is America, Babylon the Great, right? Rome again, right? So this is going to happen, right? Um, again, right? When we finish what? The testimony of his judgment that's coming, right? He's gonna, right? That same beast is gonna make war, right? I know he's gonna overcome. He overcame two. He's gonna overcome 2/3 of our people, right? Have them take the charagma. They're gonna be destroyed, right? Some of us will die for this truth, just like back then. The apostles, right? Right? They were martyred, right? And right? But we're gonna be this time, right? The Lord is not gonna suffer his people to dwell in Egypt, right? But he's gonna deliver them with a swift hand, right? Um, right? You can precept that with Revelation 6 and 9, right? And let's see if I got another one. Vision part. No. Right. So let's see. A short time. This. Right. Seal. Stage. Yeah, that's about it for that. Right, so that's going to happen again, right? You read about that in Revelation 12 and 17. Dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Yahweh Mashiach, right? So he overcame us. Mainly, you can precept that with Revelation chapter 11, right? So that's what it's talking about, right? 11 and 7, right? Salakia. Right? Revelation chapter 13 and verse 8, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world. Right? Because ultimately, right, they're gonna worship him, right? Worship, how are they gonna worship him? By conforming to his image, right? Which is the image is not Caesar Borgia, right? The image is what? Jake leaving off his former custom, just like during the time of the Greeks, right? When it was right, you had Jakes not keeping the Sabbath, right? You have Jakes today, right, wearing a tie and suit, a monkey suit, right? You have Jake today, right, going in Greek fraternities and all those things, right? The scriptures say that is sin, right? Because it's not according to the law, right? Those things lead on to death. Esau's system leads on to death, which is why the book of Micah says, right, this place is not your rest, right? But Jake doesn't understand, right? Even now, they don't know what the times that we're in, right? So that's part of how those that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, right? And that's talking about the other nations as well, because ultimately, right, you're either gonna take the charagma, right, or you're not gonna be able to eat, right? These other nations, right? A lot of people are gonna take it, right? They're gonna be destroyed, right? So they're gonna worship, right, him, right, through his system, right? And his new system is what? The Internet of Things, right? Through that, he's gonna track every single thing you do, your carbon footprint, right? He's gonna feed you worms, right? Right? Bill Gates came up with a fungus burger, right? And coming up with things like parallel farming, right? So in this new system, you're not going to own anything, right? And you're going to be happy with that, right? That's what Esau wants, right? He wants to be, he wants to play the part as God, right? Which is part of the name of blasphemy, right? Revelation chapter 13, right? And those are not written in the book of life, right? The elect are written in the book of life, right? Because the elect are going to conform to the image of the Son, right? 2/3 are going to conform to the image of the beast. They're going to worship the beast, right? The root system, right? By forsaking the law, statutes, and commandments, right? By assimilating into his ways, right? Which is why you got to know the law, you got to know the Hebrew, right? That's what mashal means in Genesis chapter 4, right? Let's get that real quick. Genesis 4, right? And 7. And if thou do well, shalt thou not be accepted. If thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. Right? Let's get that in blue letter. Right? Blue letter Bible. Genesis 4. Let's get that real quick. Try and fix this real quick. Alright. Let's see what we got here. Genesis 4. Right? Because mashal, it means a proverb. It's like a saying. Right? But what do you do in a saying? Right? You, let's just look this up first. Right? So, if thou, Genesis 4 and 7, if thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted. If thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, thou shalt rule over him. Right? So what does that mean? Right? This is the Hebrew, Genesis 4 and 7. Halah, right? Which is not, right? If, hayatayab, right? Or thayatab, right? If not, if you do well, right? Because the wab means good, well, right? Good job, well done, right? If thou doest not well, if not, right? If not, if well, right? You do well, right? And it says sha'ath, right? To be right? Is it not if you do well, right? Will you not be lifted up? Because nasha means to lift up, or sha'ath, right? To be established, right? If thou doest not well, shall thou not be established, right? Nasha, right? Which is also where you get the word leaven from, right? Because what does that mean, right? Leaven, right? Sha'ar, right? Which means, right, to be swelled up, right? If you're swelled up in pride, or if you're, right, established, right? Right? But really that the root is nasha, where you can compare it, right, to fermentation leaven, right? Swelling, right? Sha'ar, right? To left, to remain, right? To be left over, right? That's going in something else, right? But yeah, that's what it's like here. We go back to that just to get to the point, right? So if now you do well, right? If not, if you do well, you will be lifted up, right? If you do not, right? Is it not if you do well, will you not be lifted up? Wa'am la'a hayatab hayatayab lapathach, right? And if not, you do well, right? Then pathach is a door, right? And it also means to open, right? And will be you and for right to be open. And if you do not, if not, you do well, right? You'll be open to sin, right? And you will, right? Rabats, which means to lie, to crouch down, right? Or to lie on all fours like a beast in rest, right? To right? If you not do well, will be open sin, right? Unto you, right? To crouch down, right? Because that's what it means basically, right? Wa aliyaka, right? And to thee, right? You will, right? You will pursue, right? Shawak, ta shakwa, right? Right? You will pursue it, right? And wa'atha, right? And to you, and you, atha, wa'atha, right? And you, right? You will assimilate upon it, right? Because mashal is a proverb, but it also means to rule, assimilate, right? To put forth the proverb, right? So let's look up assimilate. Salakia. Take in information, ideas, or culture and understand fully. Cause some to resemble liken, right? So the Resol system, right? He calls, right? Something to resemble liken to each person's philosophy, to each person's doctrine, right? To all the heathens, right? In order for them, right, to agree with each other, right? He peepers all people into himself, right? He takes on the customs of the people, right? All those things lead to sin, right? Because the heathens, right? The scriptures say that the gods of the heathens are idols, right? Make a sound more like another in the same next word, right? Assimilate, absorb, incorporate. So incorporates the people's customs, right? And is in his Roman Empire, right? He lets them do according to their abominations, according to their desire, right? That do what thou wilt spirit, right? And that's part of his system, right? And that's that spirit of Cain, right? His lust, right? He absorbs, he takes in, he integrates the people, right? And he calls to resemble his ways, like unto the ways of the people that he heaps up unto himself, the Greeks, Babylonians, right? He says you can do this, you can do whatever you want, right? But I'm the man in charge. I'm God, right? That's what Esau does, right? Chain editing creation, right? That's that spirit of Cain, right? So what does it say? Right, that's Mashal, right? That's, which is a proverb, right? So if not, if you do well, be established, and if not, you do well, right? Will be open to sin, to lie down, and to thee you will pursue, and you will simulate upon it, right? So Esau is inherently wicked, just like the other nations, right? So what does he do? He takes what his heart desires. Why? Because he was given that power by the Lord, right? And sin rules over his lust, right? And he assimilates over upon it, right? Upon all manner of sin, all absorbing all people into himself. All that is sin. Removing the boundaries, blaspheming the temple of the Lord, right? Promoting Moism, promoting things contrary to the scriptures, right? It's that same spirit of Cain, right? So let's look up Proverb. And the online etymology dictionary, proverb, right? In book Proverbes, the Old Testament work from Old French proverb, Latin proverbium, right? Literally words put forward, right? Word, an enigmatical utterance, a mysterious or oracular saying that requires interpretation, right? 1300s, written reference to native sayings, short, pithy sentence, often repeated, colloquially, expressing a well-known truth or common fact, ascertained by experience or observation. A popular saying which briefly or enforceably expresses some practical precept. An adage, a wise saw, often said in the guise of metaphor and form of rhyme, sometimes alternative. If I would reproach, object of scorn, right? Pertaining, resembling proverbs, right? So let's, which is what a proverb is, right? It's a resembling of words, right? Assimilate. Physiology, absorb into, make part of the body, right? He puts all people onto himself, right? Which is what, right, a proverb is, right? It's like a copy. It's to, right, to make something similar. To, right, comparing one thing to another, right? To resemble one thing to another, right? Make alike, cause a resemble, intransitive, become incorporated into linguistics, bring into accordance or agreement in speech, right? And right is what Esau does with his words. His words is confusion, right? Make similar, similars, resembling of the same kind, similar, right? So simulate is compared to similar, right? Like, resembling, together, right? Because Esau is off. These nations are off, right? So he's giving them, right, that strong wine, right? Look, I can make your life better. Look, I can make you see. My technology is gonna turn you into a god. Right? You're gonna be better. You're gonna be, right, transhumanism, right? Which is what the Charagma is, right? It's transhumanism at the end of the day, right? And that's all in the guise of, right, right, absorbing you. This is what Esau does. He absorbs himself, right, upon sin, right? His lust pursues sin. So he has to right, get you in that trap, right? Assimilate, absorb, make part of the body, right? Because Esau, right, by himself, he can't do it, right? He needs the nations. He needs Jake, right? Because Jake has the ideas, right? This is how Babylon the Great became Babylon the Great, right? So let's go back to Revelation chapter 13, right? So that's part of the beast, right? Something to think of. Something to think on, right? Mashal, simulate. which means proverb, right? Which means to rule, right? When you rule, you're absorbing, right, customs, right? This is what Alexander the Great did. You see how one word, right, can describe so many things, right? That's a living language, right? That's the Hebrew, right? Ma meaning water, Sha meaning teeth, La meaning lamad, to teach, right? What do you do, right? What is it, right? His wine, right? He entices, right, the one who drinks it, right? And then he gets you with his teeth, right? His philosophies, right? They ultimately bite you, right? And then he teaches you his own ways, right? All in the guise of, let's come together, right? We can do this, we can do that. But the scriptures say that war is in his heart, right? His words are smoother than butter, but war is in his heart, right? And these nations are finding out. Why? Because the Israelites are waking up, right? The wicked is being exposed, right? We're prophesying again. The power spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, Bashim Kakodash, right? So that's what this thing is about, right? Edifying, right, our people, right? This is Revelation chapter 13 and verse 8. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world. If any man have an ear, let him hear, right? So the book of life, that's talking about the elect, right? 2/3 going to take the charagma, right? They're already, right, in their own little, right, right, brainwashed world, right, that Esau made that. Rap, right, he promoted that, right, violence against, right, which is why you rappers are the Lord is judging the rappers too, man, right, especially Jake, right, because this rapper, what is his name, Gunna, right, because he was locked up because of his raps, right. What is the other one? I forgot the other. It's Little Weezy, the other guy, Young Thug, right? He's behind bars because of his raps. But now they're saying black art this, black art that. Well, the Lord told you you're an Israelite, right? So you want to keep saying that, right? In 2022, right? You're still in that, right? That mentality, right? The Lord's going to destroy you, right? If you're still free soul system, the Lord's going to destroy you, right? Black art, brown art, right? All that, right? That nonsense, right? The Lord is judging the rappers too, man. The Lord is judging Hollywood, right? So it says in the book Ecclesiastes that the song of the, let's get that real quick, right? So the grind in the season, the Lord said, the Lord sent his servants the prophets, right? And he told Jake what he needs to do, right? But now is the time the Lord is shutting this shit down, man. Because 2/3, man, Jake's got to go, right? These devils, right? They got to be, Lord has to intervene, right? Ecclesiastes 11:4. And the door shall be shut in the streets when the sound of grinding is low. He shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low. But the entertainment is done, right? You rappers, right? You're done, right? The Lord is judging, right, his people. And the scriptures say, right, the judgment must first begin at the house of God. And, right, woe unto them that do not believe the gospel, right? So there you go. Right, Revelation 13:9. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and faith of the saints, right? So we're not going to take up a sword. We're not going to, right, associate with rebellion, right? We're here to speak this word, right? Be patiently wait on the Lord, like till he rise up into the prey, till we get delivered, right? Because we're in the flesh, right? We have no power. We cannot save ourselves, right? So you Edomites, you other nations that had a hand in Esau and in Israel, right, in their affliction, you're going into captivity. Simple as that, right? The Edomites, right, to kill with the sword, right? They're gonna be destroyed with their own sword, right? Like it says in Second Esdras, they're gonna fall upon their own sword, right? The last leg, right, by their own weapons. And the Lord did that. The Lord is gonna do that, right? Not us. Sakari, right, with the rifles in camp, right? That's off. Revelations 13 and 10. Here is the patience and faith of the saints, right? Revelation 13 and 11, right? And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake like a dragon, right? The two horns represents what? The Democratic Republicans, right? Which is in the Romans called them patricians, plebeians, right? Right, and right, the lamb is what? Right, Esau spreading his so-called democracy, right? That's what the lamb does, right? But it speaks as a dragon, right? Because of what do? They remove, right, rulers. They set up their own rulers, right? This is what China's doing, right? They're speaking as a lamb, but they're as a dragon. They learned that from Esau, right? They're going in Africa, right? Look, we're gonna give you loans. We're gonna build in your country, but you got to pay us back. We're gonna charge you interest, and if you can't pay us back, we're gonna default. You're gonna default. We're gonna default on the loan, right? If you default on the loan, your land belongs to us, right? And they're not gonna be able to pay them back, right? That's called indentured servitude, right? That's called, right, being as a lamb but speaking as a dragon, right? That's extortion, right? It's Revelation 13 and where is it? Right, Revelation 13 and 12. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast. His deadly wound was healed, right? They revitalized Roman Empire through the laws, right? Through the written law, which is Greco-Roman, right? The days, the months, right? The pagan holidays, right? Which is comes from all these ancient nations, right? Which is they're all off, right? They're all idolaters, right? Whoremongers, right? And exercises all the power of the first beast, right? Which is Rome, the image, right? Causeth the world to worship it. How, right? Well, it says that if the scriptures say that the whore caused all those in the earth to fornicate with it, right? Through its money, through its trade, right? Because if you agree with the beast, you're gonna trade with the beast, right? You're gonna take on its ways, right? Which is why you got Taco Bell, McDonald's, and all that worldwide, right? For the most part, not so much anymore, right? Because there's dissension is in the air, right? Division is in the air, right? Um, Revelation 13 and 13, right? And he doeth great wonders, right? So that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, right? So this beast, right, has two horns like a lamb, but speaks like a dragon, right? You have, right, so many U.S. bases worldwide, right? Which is why, right, he absorbs all people into himself, right? and how the earth worships the beast, right? Right, by taking on by taking on its ways, by taking on, right, by mingling, by fornicating with the harlot, right, which is America Babylon the Great, and ultimately, right, by being one through that, right, new digital, right, that new currency, right, the charagma, right. A lot of people are gonna do that, right, because they, right, you're gonna need that according to verse 16, right. Um, but they're gonna take it because they're not written in the book of life, right? So let's get that real quick. Patricians, plebeians, right? Who were the patricians and the plebeians? Patricians would be the upper class people, such as wealthy landowners, would be in the patricians group. Plebeians would be the lower class, which would be normal people in Rome. Separations meant that they would be completely separated. Plebeians could only marry people from the social class and so forth. Right? In early Rome, patricians were the only ones who could hold political or religious office. The plebeians were the commoners in Rome and had the highest population in society. Right? So ultimately, right, this is right what's happening today, right? Democrat, Republican, right? But they're all for their people at the end of the day. They're for their people, right? The Constitution says, right, um, I think it's a song, right? Crown thy good with brotherhood, right? They're talking about, right, their people, right? They're not talking about Jake. They're not talking about these other nations, right? They don't give a damn about them. They hardly give a damn about their own people, right? So, anyways, Revelation 13 and um 13, and doeth great wonders, so he maketh fire come down from heaven, right, in the earth, in the sight of men, right? How do you do that? Right, by dropping two bombs in Hiroshima, right, two atomic bombs in 1945, right? What does Daniel chapter 8 and 25 say? Right, Daniel chapter 8 verse 25. And through his policy he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace he shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the princes and prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. Right? So Yahushua is a prince of princes, right? And he's gonna break this goddamn devil by his own weapons, right? The Lord created the weapons of his indignation, right? For in order for this devil, right, to be destroyed by his own, right, wickedness that he created, right? Really is talking about Antiochus Epiphanes, but that's Sleepy Creepy Joe, right? That's what we believe, right? So that happened back then, right? And right, through policy, right, through right these enchantments, through his media, right? He by peace, right? When they say peace, right, then sudden destruction cometh, right? When all hell breaks loose, right? And right, this is how 2/3 of our people are going to be enticed, right? Because they're already complacent in America Babylon the Great. They already, right, they love Esau's, right, witchcraft, which is his technology is witchcraft, right? His thought process is confusion, witchcraft, right? And right, these other nations as well, right? They're gonna ultimately, right? So the Lord created the weapons of his indignation. The Lord created the charagma. The Lord put in the devil's mind, right? Um, right, in order for him, right, to heap all people into himself, right? Because ultimately, what, right, you're gonna need the charagma, right, in order, right, to buy or sell, right? And the Lord is gonna make him prosper, so 2/3 of our people take it, many other people take it, and then boom, World War III, and then, right, many would be slain of the Lord, the elect get delivered out, and that's it, right? That's what we're waiting on, right? So hurry up, goddamn devil. Revelation 13 and 14. And deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast which had the wound by a sword and did live. Right? So all these things you see going on, these plants being destroyed, right? The fertilizer, right? Fertilizer that's being sabotaged, right? The crops, the cattle, right? There's a lot of sabotage going on. Why? Because it's a controlled demolition, right? What was 9/11? Controlled demolition, right? The NWO is a controlled demolition, right? But Lord's gonna put all that down, right? Starting with Yahushai, right? The missiles and his elect, right? Right. So this, right? This thing is it's not gonna prosper, right? The counsel of the wicked, the workers of iniquity, right? The Lord's putting right. Satan cannot cast out Satan, and his kingdom will not stand, right? Will not. It's just not possible, right? Because the Lord spoke His word, right? And he does not. He's not a man that he should lie, neither that he should repent, right? Right. So the image is what? The revitalized Roman Empire. The image is also, right, his currency, right, his new currency, right, the so-called New World, right, which is not going to happen, right. The image is Rome all over again, right. The image is what Cain did, right, which is heaping all people into himself. That's what Esau does, right. Tower of Babel, right, all these ancient civilizations, right, he took on that, and now he's saying, look, I own that, right, so you either get with it, get with me, or don't, or you're not going to get anything, right. So this is right, the wicked that the Bible speaks of. Revelation 13 and 15. He had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak, and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Right? What is the image of the beast? Right? His what? Causing the image of the beast to speak. Well, you see that through his technology, right? His technology, right? His so-called, right, robots, right? His science, right? That's part of his miracles, right? His surveillance systems, right? The way he can collect, right, vast amounts of data, right? And those that would not worship the image of the beast, right, should be killed, right? Because that happened, right, when he promotes democracy in these other countries, which is what he used to do. He can't do that no more because he's been exposed, right? And then he sends military, right? They take the resources, and then all in the name of freedom, right? But he's calling in, right, to give life to the image of the beast, was technology, the Internet of Things, right? Showing you that he can edit creation, right? So he's right. He's magnifying himself, right? Like it says in Daniel chapter 8, 8 and 25 and on down, right? Through his craft, right? His craft is what? Right? His technology, right? His surveillance system, right? Polluting, editing creation, right? So it's all part of this, which is why, right? That is the name of blasphemy, right? Part of the name of blasphemy is system, right? Um, and ultimately, right? If you're not down with this thing, right? You're gonna be put to death, right? But the elect, right? The elect, or some will die for the truth, but right, you're gonna have a great multitude delivered because there's too many Israelites, right? The Lord is gonna intervene, right? But you other nations, you're done, right? Esau, you're done, right? The Lord's gonna destroy you, right? Revelation 13 and 16, and he causeth both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in the right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. His number is 666. Right? Now let's analyze, right? Blue letter Bible. Because ultimately, right, that charagma is not an ideology, right? It's not a Caesar Borgia. It's not Christianity, right? It's an actual, right, something that is gonna be, right. You're gonna, right. You're gonna receive. You're gonna receive it, right. Same way, right. You put a computer chip in a module, right? You're gonna be the computer, right? It's an incision, right? You're gonna receive it, and right, you're gonna be destroyed, right? So Revelation 13. All right, let's get that. Right. Charagma, right? A scratch or etching, right? A stamp, right? As a badge of servitude. A stamp or imprinted mark, right? Of idolatrous images, right? Think carved, sculpture, graven work, right? Karax, right? Which is the derivative. So it's derived from karax, which is to sharpen a point, right? A palisade, a rampart, right? A pale or stake, right? Right? It's going to go in your right hand or in your forehead, right? But that's just basically, right, what that means, right? And Paul spoke about the marks of the Lord being on his body, right? Which is where you get that word from, right? But he was speaking hypothetically, right? This is the actual, right? Let's visit Chi Psi Stigma, right? Chi Psi Stigma, right? What does it say? $666, right? It doesn't mean Nero, right? That's nonsense, right? Right. So right, stigma, right, which is what? A stick or a prick, a mark incised, right? That's the stigma, right? Um, let's look at let's look it up here. Psi, Greek letter. Actually, that's not it. Slovakia. Chi, Greek letter. Right, Chi, right? Ligature, right? Slovakia, right? Which is it's literally like a X, right? Slovakia. Here it is. Yeah. Which is let's look that up. Blue letter, right? So so there's various things you can that the Chi Psi stigma alludes to, right? The 666, right? One is, right, Christ, because, right, Antichristos, right? That's Antichrist, right? Which is many, right? Antichrist, right? Christos, right? There's that, right? Chi, right? What does it mean? Anointed, right? Because, right, Esau is going to come with his own anointing, right? Right, on the left-hand side, right? Creo, the idea of contact, smear, rub with oil, right, to consecrate, right? Besmear, anoint. You also have, right? But I believe that for another lesson, right? Just gonna touch on, right, the basic, ways he's gonna employ, right, his new agenda, right? So it says, Karamoy, to furnish what is needed to graze, to employ, right? Because he gives charge to his flunkies, right? To receive a loan, to borrow, take for one's use, to make use of a thing, right? To lend, right? Take for one's use, right? But you get the point, right? And right, so that's what it says. So it's gonna be through an incision, right? You're not gonna buy or sell, right? You gotta understand the Chi-Psi stigma, right? I believe that, right, for another lesson, right? So Lord willing, you're edified, right? It's Brother Yatazadak, hero of Israel. Revelation chapter 13, giving all honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kakwadash, double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, Kwame Asharala, Abba Babal, Shalom.